Now, President Volodymyr Zelensky is calling for major reinforcement of the front line in eastern Ukraine. Zelensky speaking in his nightly video address after a discussion with Ukraine's top commander. He also said much depends on Ukraine's Western allies providing vital weaponry in as well a timely manner. His call as Russia says its troops have captured 2 new frontline villages.
Significant reinforcements are needed in the Donetsk direction, and this includes arms supplies from our partners. It's directly related. The greater our army's firepower is, the more technological capabilities we have, the more effectively we can destroy Russia's offensive potential and protect our warriors' lives.
Volodymyr Zelensky there. Well, our correspondent Emmanuelle Chaze is here in Paris, back from her base in Kyiv, and she joins me now here on set. Good to have you with us, of course, Emmanuelle. Zelensky, they're calling for reinforcements of this front line. I mean, Russia's been advancing for weeks now. It's a little late, and is it really realistic, do you think?
Well, it shows how dire the situation is also on the eastern front line. We see President Zelensky calling for logical steps from its allies if the Ukrainian army intends to defend itself, intends to maintain its positions in Donetsk, then it needs the weaponry necessary to do so, the manpower to do so. And right now we see that Russia claims not necessarily strategic villages, strategic settlements, but it does continue to advance in Donetsk little by little, and the prospect in that area is quite dire at a time also when we hear officials in Kyiv saying that the priority is to maintain positions in Kursk region, where there's been an offensive by Ukraine since the summer, in fact, and Russia has been unable to dislodge the Ukrainian army there. And why is it important? Because this is a bargaining chip for Kyiv. In case of negotiations, then the Kursk territory could be exchanged for Ukrainian territories, and that's why it's so important for Kyiv.
Listening to all the latest news that we get daily out of Ukraine, I mean, what would you say the sentiment there is in Kyiv? When you talk to people, what are they talking about?
Well, first off, we have to keep in mind, we've talked, you and I, quite often about those strikes, those daily Russian strikes against civilian infrastructures. Just to give you an idea, every night we hear drones also above the capital, Kyiv, drones that come by in waves, and also missiles when there are large-scale attacks by Russia, if you will. We see this is what's being sent every morning, the information being sent by the Ukrainian Air Force every morning on what they managed to intercept. You see there 188 targets, which are partly missiles, partly drones, that are intercepted, but also even falling. They will cause damage, and some, of course, go through the air defense because the air defense is not sufficient. And that's also why Ukraine is asking for more by its allies. And I'd like to point out that this is not only missiles and drones that would hit the front line. It also hits civilians in cities that are not close to the front line. I'm thinking about the city of Ternopil, 225,000 inhabitants, 1,000 kilometers away from the front line in the western part of Ukraine. 2 days ago, it was hit by a drone. The energy grid went completely down. Thousands of people were deprived of electricity, and a man died, Vitaly Remenets. He died in his flat on the 5th floor when a drone hit. And there's a video circulating on social media in Ukraine. His daughter, Alina, went back to their flat, their completely destroyed flat, and she paid tribute to her father. We can listen to her. So we see here Alina paying tribute to her father. We often talk about the resilience of Ukrainian people. They are surviving. And we see here Alina being obviously mourning her father. And this is the case of millions of civilians in Ukraine who are trying to survive, but it's very hard right now. Ahead of the difficult winter, we have 80% of the energy infrastructure that has been damaged. We have a situation that looks pretty gloom on the front line. There's a lot of uncertainty when it comes to Trump presidency also. So it's a very difficult time for the Ukrainian people.
Yeah, very emotional video. And what do people talk about that they need now, Emmanuelle? We talked a couple of days ago about NATO meeting, and one of the things which comes up regularly is about NATO accession.
Absolutely. And we've seen that the Ukrainian Foreign Minister, Andrei Sybiha, had said that Ukraine would not settle for something similar to the Budapest Memorandum. This was almost 30 years ago, and Ukraine gave up its nuclear weapons with the results that we now know. It wasn't defended. It had security guarantees back then, and it still has seen its territorial integrity, its sovereignty being violated. So now I would say there's no trust anymore on the Ukrainian side that any security guarantee that don't entail a NATO membership would actually work. And there's a sense of frustration from Kyiv at the moment.